Robert Eggers may just be one of the greatest directors of our generation. Starting out as a director and production designer on multiple short films and theater productions, only to transition to fully creating full-length feature films starting with The Witch back in 2015, which was a success financially and critically, grossing $40 million against a $4 million budget, while also maintaining a positive reputation amongst critics and general moviegoers alike. This success would also lead to films such as The Lighthouse in 2019 and The Northman in 2022, both of which had a similar reception, and all three of these movies are just amazing in their own right. And you can bet that I was excited for his take on the 1922 horror classic Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror. Fun fact, this was a silent film that the world almost lost due to being an, at the time, unauthorized adaptation of Bram Stoker's 1897 novel Dracula. Even though the filmmakers did make changes such as different names for the characters, most notably the film's Dracula being renamed to Count Orlok, they were still sued for copyright, and a court ruled for all copies of the film to be destroyed. Fortunately, there were multiple surviving prints, and the film would eventually go on to be one of the most iconic and beloved horror films of all time. Everyone, of course, has their own unique ways they were introduced to this character, whether it be the original 1922 classic, the 1979 Werner Herzog version. Funny enough, mine and many other 90s and onwards kids' introduction to the character was through the ending of the SpongeBob SquarePants Season 2 episode The Graveyard Shift, where the character just shows up out of nowhere as he is revealed to be the one flickering the lights during the night shift at the Krusty Krab. The characters call him out for it, and the final shot is just him with this goofy smile on his face.
Nosferatu!
How can you not love this? Robert Eggers even reflected on this scene during the hype leading up to his version of the story, and stated how grateful he was for it, introducing the 90s generation and onwards to this character. When it comes to the original movie, it's understandable why younger generations would be hesitant to watch something like this considering how old it is, but if you give it a chance, you'll surely appreciate just how much this film accomplished within its limitations during the time period. Despite it being a silent film, every bit of fear, tension, and heartbreak can easily be felt by the viewer due to so many elements such as the fantastic score by the late Hans Erdmann, the settings of locations such as Count Orlok's castle, the prairies, the German town of Wisborg, and all these other crazy shots they were able to pull off at the time. On top of all that, the fantastic performances, with two standout ones being Greta Schroeder as Tom Hutter's wife Ellen, and of course Max Schreck's performance as the titular character Count Orlok, aka Nosferatu. Throughout the film, you can just constantly feel for Ellen as she constantly feels the presence of evil, as not only her husband's life is threatened by the titular vampire, but the symbolic plague and sheer terror it spreads throughout her hometown as well. It not only makes you understand where her anxiety comes from, but you can feel the fear she gets when she's being stalked by this monster, and the sacrifices she ends up making to protect those she cares about are devastating and tragic. Max Schreck does a legendary job at fulfilling his role as the Nosferatu. Every single line, movement, and just moment he is on screen or even alluded to is enough to strike anyone who thinks of him with all the fear a human could possibly have. Not only does this character pay homage to the art of German expressionism perfectly, but he really makes the world around him feel like a true nightmare, a creature in the night, as just the mere thought of him is enough to strike any of the characters into terror. Just the appearance of his shadow is so menacing and iconic that there is a reason as to why Nosferatu, still to this day, is considered one of the most important monsters in fiction, and without a doubt my favorite depiction of Dracula. So when that first teaser for Robert Eggers' take on the character dropped back in June 2024, I knew we were in for another masterpiece by this gem of a director, and when I finally got to sit down in the theater to watch it, I got the same experience I did watching the 1922 original, but cranked up to 11. Everything I could have possibly wanted was delivered to me in a way that not only made this an amazing tribute to the original movie and adaptation of Dracula, but one of the greatest horror films I've ever seen, period. Out of all the Robert Eggers movies movies, this ranks at second place right behind The Lighthouse, which I do prefer for being a more original story, but the fact that this is number 2 really says a lot for just how great of a director this man truly is. Not only does he perfectly capture what made the original so memorable, but he just also adds all these extra layers to justify this film's existence as a remake and unique adaptation of Dracula. Every bit of horror, fear, dread, tension, discomfort, strong emotions, tribute to the art of German expressionism, foreshadowing, strong writing, and just everything that made the character and the original film as memorable as they are today are all present in this remake, on top of all the twists and turns that are added to this adaptation to make it feel new overall. Every new setting, visual, soundtrack, piece of dialogue, and performance goes above and beyond to deliver not only one of the greatest remakes I've experienced, but hands down one of the most terrifying films in the horror genre. One consistent factor this movie has is how each setting, visual, and piece of music just aligns together perfectly throughout every single scene and perfectly sets the mood and atmosphere that is on display. Every scene had this perfect level of lighting to it. For example, during some of the night scenes, there's just enough moonlight to reveal what is hiding in the shadows, almost giving you the feeling that something could pop out of nowhere at any moment. I also must give credit to the verbiage and authentic dialogue this movie script has, and what I mean is that the script writers really put a lot of effort into making these characters talk and act like as if they were from the time period they were set in. You don't hear one bit of modern day slang, rather you hear words and phrases that would be heard in a conversation back in the 1800s, and you can tell they really tried to emulate that feeling with not only how they speak, but with what they wear, the setting and locations around them, and it's a success to the point where it almost feels like the events of this movie were really a part of actual history. Speaking of actors, the performances in this movie are absolutely insane, and you can tell that everyone was locked in with the assignment. Nicholas Hoult as Thomas Hutter, Lily Rose Depp as his wife Ellen, Aaron Taylor Johnson as Friedrich Harding, William Dafoe as Professor Alban Eberhardt, and so much more that just do a fantastic job playing these characters and adding to the fuel of them being in danger and having to make multiple sacrifices to protect their loved ones. This movie is just pure nightmare fuel as every character suffers at the wrath of pure evil itself, and there is nothing but panic and heartbreak among our main cast. The scenes where Thomas is in Count Orlok's presence makes you feel how uncomfortable and in danger he is when he is with someone who has a lust for his wife and blood, or the scenes where Ellen is having panic attacks and these nightmare and visions of this evil that are shot in such crazy ways that make you feel like you're in the nightmare yourself and something is just about to grab you within milliseconds. Or the scene where the couple realizes they have to make sacrifices for each other, and it just showcases how strong their love is, and it just makes the outcome of those sacrifices so soul-crushing. Now, because he wasn't really showcased that much in the trailers, I'm unfortunately going to have to tiptoe what I say when I talk about the titular vampire Nosferatu, aka Count Orlok. But I'm going to give a brief explanation on what you should expect from the character. First and foremost, Bill Skarsgård is fantastic when it comes to playing this character. Hands down, the best performance in the entire film. Everyone knows and loves his portrayal of Pennywise in the recent It films, but in my eyes, this is his best role by far. Every time he even opened his mouth, or even made the slightest sound, it gave me and everyone in the theater chills. His design gave me chills. His shadows gave me chills. Heck, I just freaking love it when a character's very presence can even shake me a little bit. And that is all topped off with this incredible voice that just makes him sound super creepy and sinister. This guy is a legitimate threat who shows zero mercy to anyone and is essentially grooming this poor young woman, which may sound like overkill at face value because some of you may be thinking, oh, well, him wanting to suck her blood isn't really a sexual act. If you really think about it, Ellen is vulnerable and knows for a fact that she can't defend herself against this monster. And he uses that to his advantage to not only harm those around her, but to toy with her emotions and manipulate her into fulfilling his lust for blood. He'll go out of his way to kill and traumatize his victims for life in order to prove his power. And when you have an antagonist with no remorse for what he does, while also filling him with personality, that's when you know you made a perfect villain. And in my eyes, Robert not only nailed the purpose of this character perfectly, but he managed to make what is, in my opinion, not only the greatest version of the character, but one of the greatest horror movies I've ever seen in my life. And I am not exaggerating at all when I say that. Right now, this is doing decently at the box office, but I cannot stress enough on how much you need to see it in theaters. If you like horror in any shape or form, then you have got to just go out and order a ticket immediately and go watch this movie right now. For the films I've seen so far this year, this is up there with movies I've enjoyed to a level such as Dune Part 2, The Wild Robot, and even Wicked, which I really wanted to talk about, but unfortunately I was taking a break from YouTube, but I'll eventually talk about it again in my favorite movies of 2024 video. But all the films I just mentioned had to have been experienced on the big screen, and this is no exception. These are all cinema. These are all the greatest, some of the best pieces of cinema in 2024. Easily a top 5 movie of the year right now, even if it somehow falls out of that when I am done watching all the 2024 films I want to watch, possibly for my video. It definitely will be in the top 10, because as a matter of fact, this movie is a 10 out of 10. Anyways, what do you guys think? Does this video make you want to go see the movie? Do you agree with my takes? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more reviews, detailed analysis, and facts on entertainment media, animation, video games, and so much more. And keep calm and let life carry you on.